Central PA Comic-Con 2014, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. The event was held April 5th and 6th, 2014 at the Embers Convention Center in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. This convention was formerly known as RocCon PA and was last held in 2012, but a lot of people don't know that because this event happened the same weekend that Hurricane Sandy hit. They were supposed to have a 2013 convention, but due to various problems it didn't materialize, so I kind of had some high hopes coming into this event. The last event that was held in 2012 had attendance of around 500 and was a nice little convention with a good guest list. I only attended Saturday of the event, so my experiences will be coming from that day. So let's see what happened. So for the good, the dealer's room was pretty good. They had a decent amount of comic book dealers with the other stuff you see in a average dealer's room at any convention. They had long boxes which had comics, and that's what you're looking for at a Comic-Con. The game room was pretty good. They had consoles for free play, but they also had board games to test out. That Game Place from Lemoyne, Pennsylvania, they got a nice shop down there. They were running the board game samples. They were running a couple of tournaments. It was fine. We sat down and played a little bit of zombie dice. They were cool. They had a lot of people there to help. And J.G. Hertzler, he was a good guest. He was Martok from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. He was very entertaining. I got to attend his panel on Saturday. It was a great panel. He talked about Star Trek. He was originally going to talk about fan films, but he kind of just figured out, hey, let's talk about Star Trek. Lots of good stories, very personable. He was a gem, and I'd actually like to see him at more cons. Very, very interesting. Very, very easy to talk to. Was absolutely maybe the gem of the convention. The Embers Convention Center was bad. It falls under the bad category. And this is one of those times, a lot of people don't like Yelp, but I'm a Yelper. Yelp was pretty accurate on this one. When you see something that has over 10 to 20 reviews and the overall rating is 1 star, that's a lot of red flags. I would best describe the facility as probably the owners gave up in the early to mid-90s. It looks dilapidated from the outside. It was not a modern facility. Really not set up for modern AV. Lots of wood grain, as I'd like to call it. The Clarion Ballroom was rather dark compared to the rest of the convention center, and we did find out later that our convention used only about half of what they would call the convention center space, and didn't even use the main grand ballroom, whatever you want to call it. It was just not a great facility at all. What was ugly was the programming, which was a strength of the last RocCon Central PA Comic-Con, but this time it felt very disjointed. I mark it as generally all, but it didn't feel like there was a nice even flow of content going on at times. It really lacked balance. We left the convention center for dinner and came back, and suddenly there was a costume contest ongoing. I don't believe that was scheduled till later in the day if I understood the schedule correctly. And I'll tell you right now, J.G. Hertzler should have had another panel that day. I don't know if he did, but I don't think he did. They need to get him in a second panel because he was interesting enough to justify it. It didn't feel like the quality of programming was there too. I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus. I'm a panelist. There were some panels we attended that simply were not up to spec. I'm not going to name them because that is not fair, but we left for lunch early because the one panel was so bad. Now, why we kind of stuck around, because we had some friends show up, and they wanted to stay for the Con Stories panel. I have run Con Stories panels before. We get to the room, and there's no one to moderate a Con Stories panel. There was also no one in the crowd, except for us that were really veteran con attendees, that had Con Stories. So we took the panel over and just started running the Con Stories panel. We had to keep it clean because there were children in the room, and we did almost an hour and a half to an hour and 40 minutes of clean con stories, which is a miracle within itself. The con chair came in, I'd say 15 minutes in the panel, and said this was a open, moderated panel. People were just to tell stories. Con Stories doesn't work that way. You need to set up a firm limit. You need to know who your audience is, so you can judge what content. Because I have stories that really, they're 18 plus. You don't discuss them in front of children. I also have lots of clean stories, and we told a lot about travel experiences. But unfortunately, we were able to pull off the panel, impromptu, no problem, but the overall programming of the con, especially on Saturday, was rather weak. Overall, compared to the 2012 event, I would say this con was a step backwards in many ways. I actually would have left at 4:30, but our friends and other people we knew were staying for con stories, so we stayed, and like I said, we ended up running it. I had a friend with me at this con. I told some rather good stories about 2012's event. I had a really high opinion of that one, and we both walked away from this event somewhat disappointed. He also enjoyed the dealer's room, but I feel bad because, again, this event just kind of went backwards in some ways. Now, attendance was reported to be around 800 people for Saturday, and they're looking to return at a different location for next year. So, I guess we'll have to see, but I honestly can't say that I'll be in attendance. I'm going to have to think about this one, because this was, unfortunately, probably the worst con I've attended since SetsuCon 2012. That was a really weak event, and unfortunately, this one was probably even weaker. I give Central PA Comic Con 2014 a C-. It was really weak, unfortunately, but it wasn't a total disaster. Thanks for watching.